And I see Commissioner Estrada is now with us.
Okay, so I will call the meeting to order. I'm excited to see everybody that's connected to the meeting. It looks like we've got a full house today. So let's move to the first item on the agenda, which is roll call.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Jim Anderson.
Here.
Commissioner Roger Anderson.
I'm here.
Vice Chair Yvette Brooks.
Here.
Commissioner Ryan Kennedy.
Here.
Commissioner Francisco Estrada.
Good morning, here.
Morning. Commissioner Zach Friend.
Here.
Thank you. Chair Rochelle Lather.
Present.
Alternate Commissioner Ed Banks.
Here.
I believe I heard him. Alternate Commissioner John Hunt.
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Manu Koenig is absent. And alternate Commissioner Donna Lind.
Here.
Chair, we have a quorum.
That's great. So we'll move on to the next item, which is the executive officer's message.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a brief reminder that this meeting is being conducted using Zoom webinar in accordance with AB 361. As you recall, under this platform, commissioners and staff have complete control over the webcams and microphones. For members of the public, their webcams and microphones have been disabled, but they will have the ability to view and see the entire meeting. Members of the public will also have an opportunity to address the commission on any agenda item, and they can do that two ways. One, they can send their comments to LAFCO staff and we will read their comments on their behalf, or they can raise their hand on Zoom. If they're joining us via conference call, they can press *9 and that will raise their hand. Or if you're on the platform, if you just click on the raise hand button. During public comments, that individual will be recognized and will have up to 3 minutes. Staff will inform them when they have 1 minute left and when their time is up. And for any item that requires commission action, there will be a roll call vote. So Chair, that's the virtual meeting process. The only other update I have involves the ongoing reorganization involving Branson 40 Fire and Scotts Valley Fire. As you may know, LAFCO has been helping the district deal with their operational and governance issues as we move forward with the reorganization. For example, Branson 40 Fire's initial concern about the reorganization was the future of the fire station and the residents being the ones to determine what happens to the station. Currently, the station is understaffed and underfunded. That is why LAFCO helped the district create an RFP to determine a new benefit assessment to keep the station in operation post reorganization. Just some people just to make sure we don't have any background. There we go. So after sending an RFP to over 50 firms, the district received one bid from SCI Consultant, who has vast experience in the county and has success in implementing benefit assessment measures. The district considered approving a contract with the firm at their last two board meetings. Both resulted in the district deciding not to move forward with the benefit study. With no study, there will be no proper funding identified or a vote by the residents. And a result, the station will no longer be in operation post reorganization. It is important to note that Scotts Valley Fire is more than capable of providing adequate services from their two existing fire stations near the Branson 40 community. And they were open to operating the Branson 40 fire station if they had proper funding and at least 2 people on duty, which is the minimum state standard. Nevertheless, the reorganization will continue with community workshops scheduled to begin soon to educate the residents about the benefits of the reorganization and why this is all happening. As for the Branson 40 Fire Station, the 2 districts in LAFCO under our joint ad hoc committee will now be tasked to identify possible alternative uses for it. This will be addressed in a transition plan that we are currently working on. Chair, that concludes my update, but I'd be happy to answer any questions once you open and close public comments.
Okay, so let's open public comments.
And I believe we have Miss Becky Steinbrenner. Miss Becky, I'm asking you to unmute yourself.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is Becky Steinbruner. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I want to make sure that the Commission understands, because I participated in some of those Brentford Fire District Board meetings, the last one most recently held. The concern by the directors was that it is moving so fast. And they have been talking with their neighbors. Many people are still not yet aware of what is happening in terms of a consolidation or merger. And they had no idea that this was going to go to a parcel tax vote. And that is what would ensue after approving a $50,000 engineer study by SCI. There was conflicting information in the agenda packet. While the staff report said that the target deadline for the vote would be January or February, SCI's contract said it would happen next spring. So the thrust of the director's comment, and I hope some of them are online and will comment, but the thrust was that it was just moving too fast. People were uninformed. I'm happy to hear there will now be community meetings, because it was sort of getting the cart before the horse. These parcel taxes could be, we've heard figures $1,000 to $1,500 per parcel, and it would be a weighted vote. So that's why, in my estimation, this was voted down. $50,000 is a lot of money, and especially with a district that is being deemed underfunded. There's a lot of things that $50,000 could do. And it could fund an SCI contract, and the directors pointed out that there's 180 days left to make action on this contract. So it wasn't slamming the door. They just felt like their constituents had no idea what was going on, and they wanted them to have more information. I suggest that your commission investigate something called Fire Forge, fire in all caps, it's an acronym, a program that's happening in San Mateo County, where it's a training program for emergency response people, and it gets them out doing vegetative management. Is that my time?
Yes, ma'am. If you want to wrap up.
All right, thank you. And then finally, I just want to say about water, the Mid-County Groundwater Agency received $7.3 million grant. A large portion of that will be paying for elements of the Pure Water Socal project. And I take issue with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. Chair, I will just for clarification on Ms. Becky's comments, I would disagree that this is being rushed. LAFCO's concerns date back till July of last year when we initially conducted my staff's findings and was really concerned. And we brought it to the attention to the board. And there's been almost every single board meeting that they've had since that date, they talked about their issues in the reorganization. And in January, they unanimously adopted a resolution to initiate the reorganization. The following month in February, they unanimously adopted a pre-reorganization agreement to work with LAFCO and Scots LA Fire. So this is not new to the board. It's unfortunate that they decided not to adopt the study because, again, in order to provide the residents accurate information, you need to do an analysis. And it's one thing from getting information from Grants of 40 or getting information from Scots LA Fire, but getting from a third party, an unbiased party, that's what we want. And that was a reason for the study. Without that information, we can't determine how much it would cost you to keep the fire station in operation. So without that study, we won't be able to provide that information. So Scots LA Fire has made it clear they're not going to fund that fire station with their general funds. It would be up to the Brantford 40 community to fund the station. So without that study, we can't go anywhere when it comes to that component. But the reorganization still needs to move forward because they have real severe operational and governance issues. They only have 3 firefighters on their payroll. They only have 3 firefighters, 3 staff on their operations, and they had to promote one of them to be an interim fire chief because they did a nationwide search and no one applied for that position. LAFCO is administering their board meetings because they don't have the capacity to operate. So this is a really big issue, and we've been talking about this since last July. And as the commission knows, and Ms. Becky knows, that LAFCO's here, LAFCO staff has been here promoting transparency, and that's what we've been doing this whole time. We've been guiding Ransom 40 on the correct way, providing information to the residents and processing this reorganization, and we'll continue to do that. So that's why I just wanted to provide some additional comments. Chair, we also have one more from
Right.
Michael Beaton. So Mr. Michael, I'm asking you to unmute yourself. Mr. Michael Beaton.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, sorry about that. Let's try it again. Thank you, Executive Director Serrano and LAFCO commissioners. I'm Michael Beaton, Director of General Services for the County of Santa Cruz and Administrator of the County Fire Services Agreement with CAL FIRE, which provides our operations for our County Service Area 4 and County Service Area 48. I also oversee the volunteer firefighter system that augments that emergency response throughout our county. On behalf of the county, we are in complete support of the scope of work presented today in Agenda Item 7B with AP Triton. We strongly appreciate Executive Officer Serrano for working with the county regarding our concerns identified in our formal letter that we have sent to LAFCO. In working with Executive Officer Serrano, we were able to ensure that the draft scope of work presented today looks at a full range of questions related to possible consequences of annexations and other potential ways to improve quality and efficiency for future fire services. By including the additional questions and an objective financial study to look at various impacts to CSA 48 and 4, we feel the scope presents the interests of the county. The county's objective with a final outcome of any study is that the resident service levels be enhanced based on that outcome. We look forward to working with the contractor and with Executive Officer Serrano and staff as this process moves forward. And I just want to say thank you to the commissioners and thank you to Joe Serrano.
Joe, I'm a little confused.
Thank you, Mr. Michael. I appreciate it. I think the comments that Mr. Michael Beaton is in regards to an upcoming agenda item on today's agenda, item 7B. I just saw his hand raised, so I thought it was for this particular item. But that being said, I think his points are valid, and I'll re-loop to his comments when we get to that agenda item later in the meeting.
Yeah, and it seems like people are confused that this is the oral communications section, which it's not.
Right. So I think
Executive officer's message. So let's move on to adoption of minutes.
Perfect. I agree.
So does anybody have any questions or edits to the minutes?
I'll move approval.
I'll second that.
We got a first by Commissioner Roger Anderson and a second by Jim Anderson.
So you can take the roll call.
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Jim Anderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Roger Anderson,
Aye.
Vice Chair Yvette Brooks,
Aye.
thank you. Commissioner Ryan Coonerty,
Aye.
Commissioner Francisco Estrada,
Aye.
Commissioner Zach Friend,
Aye.
And Chair Rochelle Latham.
I'll abstain since I wasn't there.
Okay, so we have a 6-0 vote with 1 abstention. So the minutes haven't passed.
Okay, so let's move on to special presentations. Oh, sorry, oral communications. I felt like we already did that.
I think we did cover that, but this is an opportunity if anyone wants to address the commission on items not on the agenda. So we do have a hand raised, Chair, so I'll ask them to unmute themselves. Ms.
Okay.
Becky?
Good morning. This is Becky Steinbruner. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I apologize for confusing things by talking about something that was not appropriate for the comment on the director's report, and I apologize. I have my notes, and I got.
That's fine.
So I will go back to the very brief thing that I mentioned at the end that was confusing and inappropriate, and that was regarding $7.3 million grant from the state to the Mid-County Groundwater Agency. I am elated that this money is coming in to help Mid-County Groundwater Agency with the groundwater sustainability plan. We are very fortunate that agency's plan was so well done, was immediately accepted or very quickly accepted. I just saw that there were 12 groundwater agencies in other areas of the state, also in critically overdraft areas, most of them in the Central Valley, which is a real problem with land subsidence, that were not accepted. Here it is 2 years later, and they're still trying to get things worked out. So we're very lucky to have such a good staff and a well-designed plan. The only part of that plan that I do take issue with is that it has really made the Pure Water Socal project, where treated recycled water would be injected into the aquifer, is the keystone of that sustainability plan. And that is why the part of the $7.3 million grant is being used to pay for elements of that project. I think there needs to be other alternative projects also funded by the MGA grant, the $7.3 million, and those are also valid recharge projects. So I just encourage you to look at that and see how the money is being spent. Again, I'm very happy that the money is coming, but I'm just a little concerned about the transparency, if you will, of how it's being divided and the priorities being used for that allocation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Chair, I do not see any hands raised at this time.
Okay, so were there any oral communications by commissioners? Seeing none, we will move on to special presentations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Last August, the Commission adopted a countywide Park and Rec Service and Sphere review, which analyzed the 4 recreational districts in the county and recommended that 2 districts be dissolved, those being Opal Cliffs and the Alba Rec and Park, unless the affected districts submitted a detailed plan to turn things around. As you may recall, Opal Cliffs was eventually dissolved, but Alba Rec and Park took LAFCO's concerns seriously and worked with staff to develop a plan which resulted in them addressing their board seat vacancies, hiring a general manager, and adopting policies. So now that a year has passed, staff thought it would be a good idea to hear from the district on how they're currently doing. So I'm pleased to introduce the district's general manager, Ms. Lindsay Speth. So what I'll do right now is I'm going to allow her to share her screen. So Ms. Lindsay, whenever you'd like, you can start sharing your screen and start your presentation.
Hi, Joe. I'm wondering if I can ask for one favor, which is to unmute Martin Mills, who's also on this call. We're just going to joint present. He's one of the directors for the district as well.
You got it.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Oh, it's saying you have to stop sharing for me to be able to share.
All righty. How about now? Can you try it?
Yes, it's working. Okay, cool. All right, can everyone hear me, see the screen? We're all
Yes,
good?
ma'am.
Okay, cool. So my name is Lindsay and I'm general manager for the Alba Recreation and Park District. For those of you that aren't familiar with our district, it's basically a district that exists that surrounded the Alba Schoolhouse, which burned in 2020 in the CZU fire. And so now we are a district with no structure, but lots of spirit. A nuance to the Alba Schoolhouse is that though it is part of a park district, the structure and land is actually owned by the SLV Unified School District. It was a school and remained under their purview. And so last year, right after our LAFCO meeting, the SLV Unified School District actually the board voted unanimously to rebuild the structure. And they'll be starting that process towards the end of this year. And so we're super excited to be working with the operations manager at SLV Unified. We have a board meeting happening in September where we're going to start collaborating with the architect for the project. So we're so grateful that they opted to move forward with that for our community. And then in addition to the structure, we're going to try to utilize the California per capita grant program to cover anything that's outside of the structure as well. So we're hoping to be able to provide our community with like a really rich, though very small park once we're all done, which we're estimating probably it'll be another 2 years until that project is complete. In the meantime, we're also super grateful for the Sequoia Retreat, which is allowing us to operate basically our services as a free service. And so the Sequoia Retreat is about a half mile away from us. And they've been really great in terms of us being able to still hold our fundraisers and different events that we would do, including different educational events. And a monthly potluck is something that we've always offered. And so that's sort of how we're able to operate while we're waiting for our structure to be rebuilt. Okay, I'm going to pass it off to Martin.
And speaking of some of the events at the Sequoia Retreat Center, there's some pictures there of our 4th of July annual fundraiser. This is an event that's been happening for more than 100 years, and we're continuing the tradition even without the schoolhouse. So we're doing it at the Sequoia Retreat Center, and carrying that tradition on and keeping the community involved and letting them know what's happening with our rebuilding and efforts and that sort of thing for the schoolhouse. Next slide. And as you can see here, this is some of our donation history for the last 5 years. And this last year, 2022, you can see we've raised already almost $4,000 in donations. And donations have been traditionally what has sustained the schoolhouse and operated its maintenance and operations and things like that. And the 4th of July fundraiser was very successful this year, thanks largely to the efforts of Lindsay Speth. Thank you. But also a lot of folks in the community came out and showed up and supported us and helped with the event. And so we're keeping that going. And the last couple of years, it's been successful right there at the Sequoia Retreat Center. And we thank Diane for that, for sharing that space with us. So, we've got a significant increase in our donations over the past 5 years. And our expenses have dropped to very low now because we don't have a structure that we're providing utilities for. We're not insuring the structure, that's events and things like that. So we do have just minor expenses for the compliant website, our liability insurance for the event, and CSDA membership. But otherwise, we're overall net positive on the finances. Next slide. Yeah, this is what I was getting to earlier. Just to note that Alba Park and Rec District has always been 100% volunteer organization. I think that's how the schoolhouse was built, for that matter. And we've continued that tradition, and the community has responded, and they're, I think especially with the spirit of rebuilding after the fire, people have come out and helped to support us and keep us going and that sort of thing. So we're hoping to keep that alive and keep the district functional and solvent and successful and leading our community. Next.
I think it's worth saying too that we don't actually collect any tax revenue from any of our districts. So we are 100% funded through donations. And so without the structure and without the ability to use the space, it would be pretty difficult for us. We don't have any plans in future to tax our community, but I guess that's always an option available to us in future if we ended up needing it. So the last time we met, we had a pretty sparse board, but now we have a full board of 5, including treasurer and president positions taken. So I think it's interesting to note that our president, John Gotthold, is a longtime resident of Alba Road. And his mother actually in the 60s was one of the presidents as well, which I think is kind of cute and nice. And speaks to just like the close-knit nature of our community in Ben Lomond. And that was obviously an issue in past. Our governance, our ability to operate without a full board was a challenge, which now, we have a full deck. In addition, we had a challenge where we didn't really have anybody available to do like day-to-day work. And so effective January of this year, I took on the role of general manager. And so that just allows us a little bit more flexibility and definitely like an additional level of checks and balances where it's like I can kind of operationalize things for the schoolhouse while we're working through like our rebuild and these different events. And I'm able to be checked by the full board of directors to be able to kind of move forward. And so I think it's allowed a lot more flexibility than perhaps they had in the past.
And we certainly thank Lindsay for her significant efforts in that regard. She does a great job.
We also have this one, and public board meetings. Okay, in past, this was also a challenge. But now we have been able to have 3 board, we do our meetings quarterly. And so we've been able to have our meetings via Zoom, thanks to Governor Newsom allowing that. And this obviously as an option for us. So we had 3 meetings. We had one in 2021 as well. Our next meeting is in September. And so we've been able to kind of keep that in a regular cadence. I think probably next year we'll, towards the end of this year, we'll put on the docket just to kind of consider, do we need to up the cadence of it? But because we have no structure and we haven't been rebuilding, it wasn't necessary. But it's possible that next year we'll just do like a monthly meeting instead. Okay, and then our website, which was also an issue because we didn't have one that was in compliance. And so we're so grateful for the CSDA and Streamline, which I don't know how familiar people are with Streamline, but it's an organization that only makes websites for special districts. And so we were able to connect with them, and they were able to put together a website for us that meets all of the compliance issues that we had in past. And they've been a great partner for us to be able to make sure that everything is like as it needs to be. And our hope is like as we go forward through the next few years, we can go beyond just like the minimum required. And there's like a lot of different things that we can kind of add to our website in terms of transparency. But very, very relieved to have found Streamline and the referral, which came through the CSDA to be able to set that up at a pretty reasonable cost, given the, we have a really small budget and we don't make a lot of money. So we were able to get that set up.
We've also expanded our community partnerships to work with the Ben Lomond volunteer fire department. And Firewise, Alba Road itself became a recognized Firewise community this last spring, which has allowed us to expand our community knowledge about fire. It really fits with the schoolhouse mission now, since we were consumed by the fire, that we now educate folks about it as well. And we see that as an opportunity going forward, that, you know, even when the structure is rebuilt, there may be some fire education opportunities there. So we've been partnering with Chief Brownlee at Ben Lomond Fire for various different educational events. And we've been doing those at the Sequoia Retreat Center as well. We're also planning to have the district collaborate with Firewise once our facility is available too. We're also going to be presenting, we have a table at the upcoming 2-year anniversary of the CZU fire at the Brookdale Lodge. So we will be representing the Alba Park and Recreation District there as well. Next slide. We also partnered with the San Lorenzo Valley History Museum. Somebody, Lucia McLean, who's involved with their board there, she put together a book on the founding of Alba School, which is a cute little history of our schoolhouse. So that book has been for sale, and Lucia has generously been donating the proceeds from those sales to the Alba Recreation and Parks District as well. Next slide. For the rest of 2022 and into 2023, it says here, we plan to continue to improve the operations of the district, focusing on the areas that the LAFCO staff pointed out, such as financial reporting, board trainings, operational documentation. And then we want to also influence the rebuild design where possible with the school district. We're not in charge of that rebuild, but we're hoping to give some input as to how that structure might be tailored in any way possible to suit our needs going forward. And more, as I mentioned, we've got these other events going on too. So yeah, we're doing the board trainings on ethics and sexual harassment prevention and those kinds of things as well. Next. And so I would take any questions if anybody in the commission or the public has questions about what we've been up to, and anything anybody wants to add to that.
Okay, so
Chair, I would just mention that I want to extend my appreciation to the new general manager, Ms. Lindsay, and their board for really turning things around. And I also want to thank this commission for the service review that they adopted, because this reinforces the importance of the service reviews, of not just identifying the issues to the districts, but helping them and identify opportunities to improve. And I think this was a great collaboration between the district and LAFCO on helping them become a more efficient district. And all they needed was a little boost from LAFCO, and they ran with it. And this is exactly what LAFCO wants to see. It does not matter if a district is small or large, or new or old, or in rural or urban territory. It's about how efficient there is and what's their purpose. And this district was able to really hone in on their purpose and make sure that they're in compliance with the law. And that's what LAFCO is asking for. So I'm really, really happy with the improvements that they've done. And I'm looking forward to see the additional improvements. And I'd like to bring the sphere boundary for the district perhaps later in the year. At this point, it's a zero sphere, because at that point, they weren't efficient. And we were recommending dissolution, but that is not the case anymore. So I think it's a valid consideration to consider maybe a coterminous sphere in the near future. So I want to thank Ms. Lindsay for the presentation. And Chair, at this point, you can open the public comments if you'd like.
okay, are there any requests to speak? I don't know what I did with oh, there it is. I don't see any requests from the public.
Neither do I, Chair, but I do see one from our commissioners.
Right, so Commissioner Hunt,
Thank you, Chair Lather. As a former Recreation District board member, I just want to say I'm very impressed with the professionalism and enthusiasm that we're seeing from Alba. So, guys, keep up the good work. This looks great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
yeah, I remember the meeting where you came and you were so impassioned, and I really was hoping that you'd be able to do this. So I'm very proud of you.
Thank you so much.
It's been a lot of work. Thank you, Lindsay. With that, we do hope that the LAFCO Commission will reaffirm the current sphere boundary for our district in the future.
I see Francisco Estrada has his hand up.
Thank you, Chair. I also want to echo what you mentioned about, I remember that meeting too. And just to say that even then, I just appreciated the passion with which you spoke with about, maintaining sort of this sort of beautiful space. And so to see how far you've come since that meeting, just to really say that it's really inspirational. I think it's a great, it's really great to see civic engagement at this level. We don't always have to go to the national or state level, just at the very micro level. Sometimes that's all you need. And so to commend you for all your hard work, and thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments? Okay, so there's no votes, so we can move on to the next item. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
your time.
So we're on to item 6, which is public hearing, Blossom Way, Stephen Bell, extraterritorial service agreement. Provide your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Staff received an application from a single landowner to receive sewer services from the city of Scotts Valley under a extraterritorial service agreement. As the map shows, the single parcel is immediately adjacent to the city limits and within the city sphere, which indicates that LAFCO has identified the city as the most logical provider for the parcel. A complete analysis is available in your agenda packet, but for today's presentation, I will go over 4 key findings. And I just want, before I continue.
Joe, do you have your presentation up?
Oh, okay, I'm sorry about that. 1 second. Can you see my slides now? Sorry about that. As I was mentioning, the subject parcel is immediately adjacent to the city limits and within the city sphere. A complete analysis is available in your agenda packet, but I just want to go over the 4 key findings for today's presentation. First, the proposal was initiated by the affected landowner. Second, the city has indicated that they are willing and capable of providing services to the parcel. Third, the draft resolution language includes language that allows the city and LAFCO to coordinate on potential annexation of the parcel at a later date. And finally, most importantly, the proposal fulfills the requirements under LAFCO law and within the commission's adopted policies. Therefore, staff is recommending that the commission adopt the draft resolution approving this extraterritorial service agreement. Chair, that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions once you close public comments, open and close public comments.
First, I have to find my unmute button. Okay, so I'd like to open public comments. Are there any members of the public interested in speaking?
I don't see any hands raised at this time, Chair.
Okay, so let's move it back to the board and close the public comment part. And I see one hand up. sorry, I don't have all my, oh, here it is. Director Roger Anderson.
Hi, I had just a couple questions on this proposal. The first one is that it doesn't seem to be a health and safety motivation for this. And I thought that was one of our requirements for extraterritorial service. The other question I have is that what sort of time limits are put on this? I mean, this is the kind of thing that I would not like sitting out for a long time. And I think that there should be a connection to the service, assuming we approve it, within some definite period of time. I don't want it just sitting out there indefinitely.
Good questions, Commissioner Roger Anderson. First, under Government Code 56-133, you're correct. There's two criterias to get approval. One is there's a health and safety issue, which typically is what we have seen in recent years. There's a failing septic tank, or a well has run dry. And so it's a health and safety issue. So where the commission can approve an ESA to help address that issue. There is also under Government Code Section 56-133 that says an ESA can be approved if the area is within the city sphere and annexation is considered at a later date, which is what is being proposed today. It is within the city sphere, and the city is willing to coordinate with LAFCO to determine potential annexation. During these since 2019, when any ESA has been submitted to LAFCO, this commission has now adopted resolutions, which has language, terms and conditions, and deadlines. That hasn't been in place in the past. So this is something new that the commission has been doing to be more transparent, and so that there is no open-ended, and we have ESAs in place for decades. We're preventing that now. And one way of doing it in this situation is, rather than saying this area needs to be annexed in 2 years, I want to make sure that the city feels comfortable with really determining what's the best method to annex this area. Well, one thing that the city and LAFCO have been talking about is maybe perhaps updating their annexation policy, which the city has in place, but it hasn't been updated since 1995. So what I'd like to do is coordinate with the city to determine when annexation is appropriate, whether that is a year from now or 2 years from now. That's something that we are discussing. But yes, the intent is not to have this ESA sitting in place for decades. And LAFCO is making sure that we have language in the resolution to make sure that we have this annexation happen.
It's not quite what my point was, and that is that when will the connection actually be made?
Oh, I'm sorry. As for the connection itself, if the commission approves this ESA, the landowner is willing to start the connection process with the city as soon as possible. They've been waiting for LAFCO's approval. So yes, that's happening right away.
Thank you.
Jim Anderson has a question.
Yeah, it was kind of along Roger. So well, like you said, most of the others we've done because of billing system. So with the annexation, will that take in any of those parcels, or how will they stand after this?
So good question. What LAFCO would like to do is look at all the ESAs that the city currently has and see whether or not annexation is appropriate at this time. We're focusing on this particular parcel because it's being requested at this time. But that's kind of the end game. We want to make sure that these ESAs have a future and they're not just kind of sitting in limbo. So that's definitely a discussion that LAFCO staff will be having with the city. And what I really appreciate about these resolutions now is that we have guidelines. We have conditions in place so that LAFCO has the opportunity to have discussions for the city. And so we're on the same page. So to answer your question, Commissioner Anderson, we do want to look at the other ESAs and develop a plan. And I think this is the first step of doing so.
Well, I just want to say, I think that you're doing the right thing here, because I think we've always questioned why one had to fail when you know, because of the geology and stuff up there, you knew beforehand that it was bound to fail. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Are
Well, Madam
there
Chair,
any-
this is Zach. I'll move the recommended actions.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Thank you. Commissioner Jim Anderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Roger Anderson,
Aye.
Vice Chair Yvette Brooks,
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan Cronity,
Aye.
Commissioner Francisco Estrada,
Aye.
Commissioner Zach Friend,
Aye.
and Chair Rochelle Lader.
Aye.
This motion passes unanimously.
So now we'll, oops, sorry, I was ahead of myself here. I was going to skip Countywide Water Service and Series.
That's the main event.
That's right. That's the main event. So let's move on to that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll try to keep this as brief as possible, but this year the commission directed staff to develop 3 service reviews, including one focus on all of the water agencies in the county. Staff conducted an in-depth evaluation of the 9 water agencies in the county that's under LAFCO's purview, including 1 CSA, 2 cities, and 6 independent special districts. These agencies are shown on your screen right now. In addition, staff also conducted a high-level analysis of the 132 private water systems shown on your screen in yellow. For purposes of today's presentation, staff will only focus on the key findings for each of the 9 water agencies, starting with Central Water District. This district was formed in 1950 and is one of the 6 independent special districts that provides water to approximately 2,700 people within 5 square miles. The district is financially sound and is operating well, but does have areas of improvement, specifically in its website functionality. In addition to reviewing its operations and governance, staff looked at the district's sphere boundary. As the map on the screen shows, the boundary is difficult to follow and excludes areas already within its jurisdiction. Plus, the district is providing services to areas outside its jurisdictional and sphere boundaries, as shown on red on your screen. Therefore, staff is recommending that the sphere be amended to reflect the district's current service area, as shown on your screen. Next, we have the city of Santa Cruz, which was formed in 1866 and is one of 2 cities that provides water to approximately 96,000 people within 27 square miles, which extends beyond its city limits, as shown in green on your screen. Let's see. As far as its governance, the district is financial. The city's water department is financially sound, is operating well, and it also has a transparent website. As far as the city sphere, it excludes areas already being served by the city, but includes the Pacific Ocean. I feel that spheres are meant to identify where services can be provided and who's the logical provider. Therefore, staff is recommending that the sphere be amended to reflect the city's current service area, except for the areas within the city of Capitola's sphere to prevent any conflicting overlap. But the anticipated annexation plans from both cities may result in changing the sphere boundaries within that overlapping area in the near future. Next, we have the city of Watsonville, which was formed in 1868 and provides water to approximately 65,000 people within 21 square miles. And it also extends beyond its city limits. The city water department is financially sound, operating well, and has a transparent website. Similar to Santa Cruz, Watsonville sphere excludes areas already being served by the city. Therefore, staff is recommending that the sphere be amended to reflect the city's current service area. Next, we have CSA 54, which was originally formed in 1966 and currently serves nobody. And the reason being, the county transferred over water service responsibility to the Summit Mutual Water Company back in 2007. Since then, CSA 54 has been inactive with no board meetings, no service delivery, or financial activity. Staff anticipates that the State Controller's Office will identify CSA 54 as an inactive district later this year, and if that occurs, a mandatory dissolution will be required. You may remember a similar situation occurred with CSA 60 in 2020. Therefore, staff is recommending that the commission adopt a zero sphere as a precursor to dissolution. Next, we have the Pajaro Valley Water Management Agency, which was formed in 1968 and is another independent special district that provides water services to approximately 90,000 people within 124 square miles and in 3 different counties. Unlike the other water agencies, Pajaro Valley Water is not a purveyor of domestic water. It is a groundwater sustainability agency created through special legislation to manage the Corralitos Pajaro Valley groundwater basin, which is shown in the blue hash marks. The district is financially sound, it's operating well, and it has a transparent website. PV Water is the only water agency in the county that does not have an official sphere designation. Therefore, staff is recommending that the commission adopt a sphere that is coterminous with the basin. Next, we have the Reclamation District number 2049, which was formed back in 1920 and provides drainage services to a whopping 16 people in 20 parcels within less than a square mile. The district is in severe financial distress, has no general manager or admin staff, has no office or website, so no form of public transparency, and has been non-compliant to various laws, including the Brown Act. Due to its severe operational and governance issues, staff has coordinated with its board and legal counsel to initiate dissolution. I'm happy to report that last week, the board unanimously adopted a resolution to initiate the process. And since the district is already within Pajaro Valley Water Management Agency, there is no need for a subsequent annexation or reorganization. To reflect the ongoing collaborative effort between the district, PV Water, and LAFCO, staff is recommending that the commission adopt a zero sphere as a precursor to dissolution. We're almost done. Next, we have the San Lorenzo Valley Water District, which was formed in 1941 and provides water to approximately 20,000 people within 60 square miles. The district is also financially sound, is operating well, and has a transparent website. This commission conducted a standalone service review for the district back in 2020 following the CZU fire. Therefore, staff is recommending that the commission reaffirm the existing sphere boundary. And next, we have the Scots Valley Water District, which was formed in 1961 and provides water to approximately 12,000 people within 6 square miles. The district is also financially sound, operating well, and has a transparent website. Again, this commission conducted a standalone service review for the district last year. Therefore, staff is also recommending the commission reaffirm their existing sphere. And finally, we have Silco Creek Water District, which was formed in 1961 and provides water to approximately 41,000 people within 17 square miles. The district is financially sound, operating well, and has a transparent website. Staff looked at the district's website, current sphere, and as the map shows on your screen, the boundary excludes areas within its jurisdiction. Plus, the district is providing services to areas outside its jurisdiction on sphere boundaries through these extraterritorial service agreements. Therefore, staff is recommending that the sphere be amended to reflect the current service area. So that's a common theme that you've heard in all these sphere amendments of reflecting services already being provided. Again, today's presentation briefly touched on the key findings, but a thorough analysis was conducted for each agency, and that was only possible by the assistance of the agencies themselves. And staff developed a draft resolution of the report and provided a draft copy and shared it with the agencies to ensure accuracy in our evaluation and to allow them an opportunity to provide comments and edits. I want to personally thank the general managers for their time and effort on this report. I also want to acknowledge that staff did receive 2 emails submitted regarding the report. One was from John Ricker, who is the former County Water Resource Division Director. And he offered clarification on the private water system information shown in the report. And another letter that we received was from Brian Lockwood. He's the general manager for the Pajaro Valley Water Management Agency. And he identified a few minor corrections and a request to look into a parcel that may or may not be officially part of the district. Their emails were shared with the commission and posted on the LAFCO website. Staff believes that their edits are valid and should be included in the adopted version of the report. I also want to thank them for their time and effort as well. In conclusion, staff is recommending that the commission take the following actions. That the commission find the report as exempt from CEQA, that the report meets the requirements under Government Code Section 56425, determine that the report meets the requirements under Government Code Section 56430, and that the commission adopt the resolution approving the Countywide Water Service Sphere review. With that, Chair, I'd be happy to take a drink of water and answer any questions once you open and close public comments.
Okay, so I will open public comments. I see one.
I'm going to go in the order that I've seen the hand raised. So,
Oh, now there's two. Okay.
Ms. Becky, you've been asked to be unmuted.
Hello, this is Becky Steinbrunner. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Director Serrano, this is an amazing report. Thank you. It is a tremendous amount of work, very well put together, and very packed with information. And I really want to thank you. It's comprehensive and very well done. Thank you very much. I would only add, having read through it, that it would be helpful if each section addressing each jurisdiction were somehow labeled on the page, especially in the financial information, what jurisdiction that refers to. I found myself having to go scroll back and figure out exactly where I was when I was reading through it. And that's just a minor suggestion for an edit to make it more user-friendly. I would like to begin with the pieces of it that most affect me and my community, and that is the relationship with Socal Creek Water District. I am a customer of Pure Source Water, a small privately owned water system that is adjacent to Socal Creek. And we're actually, if you look on the map on page 223, it looks like our community, that pigtail there going up into the mountains, is, I've been told that we are within the sphere of influence of Socal Creek Water District. So we do have, the system does have emergency intertie connections, which have been used, and we're very grateful to have that relationship with Socal Creek. The water is very, very expensive, and but it's there in emergencies and has been used. So I want to ask for clarification, looking at the map on 224, the proposed sphere, it looks like we would be removed. And I just want to clarify that, and to make very clear that the customers of Socal Creek, of Pure Source Water, have no interest at all in annexing or being merged by Socal Creek Water District. It has been somewhat of an adversarial relationship in the past for various reasons, construction projects, different things, but mostly the water quality is the issue and the expense is the issue. In the 90s, we looked into annexing, and it would have been very expensive, and we would have had less of an inferior quality of water. And to that end, I just want to point out to your commission that the County Water Commission is meeting today. County Water Advisory Commission is meeting today at 4 o'clock. And on their agenda is a draft recommendation of the SB 552 working committee. The committee itself has not reviewed or even seen these recommendations, but it is before the Water Commission today, and a lot of that has to do with consolidations. It is being somewhat pushed by the state. So thank you. I'm out of time. Again, Director Serrano, thank you for this excellent report.
Thank you, Madam.
Okay,
Chair.
and I think I saw Brian Lockwood had his hand up.
Yes, so I'm gonna, Mr. Brian, you've been asked to be unmuted.
Good morning. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Good morning, commissioners and Executive Officer Serrano. I just wanted to take a quick moment to recognize and thank Mr. Serrano for his work on this very comprehensive service review. As Ms. Steinbrunner just reported, it is an excellent and comprehensive report of the water districts in the county. And I also want to thank Mr. Serrano for his involvement in the special districts, specifically here in South County. Back in May of this year, Mr. Serrano provided an excellent presentation to the PV Water Board of Directors outlining the sphere and service review process. That was very helpful for our board to understand what was coming, and we would welcome him back at some point to provide an update on the findings in this report. Also, Mr. Serrano made himself available to discuss the report once the draft was published, and I had an opportunity to meet with him, for which I'm grateful, and he was open to receiving comments on it. It's been an exceptionally professional and pleasure to work with and collaborate with Mr. Serrano. To conclude my remarks, after receiving the presentation that he just provided to the commission, I guess I have a couple of quick little comments. I think I heard him say that we were established in 1968. PV Water was formed by an act of the state legislature in 1984. And I will note that there is a sphere of influence for Pajaro Valley Water that Monterey County LAFCO established in 1987. I do understand from my conversations with Mr. Serrano that the Santa Cruz County LAFCO has ultimate jurisdiction for our basin boundary, and we do serve within 3 different counties: Monterey, San Benito, and Santa Cruz. And one of the conversations we had was among the challenges of providing all the information about our customers and who we serve in a report that's really focused on Santa Cruz County when we're equally in Monterey County. And then one other point was in the potential adoption or proposed adoption of adjusting spheres, I just noticed that there may potentially be some overlap in spheres between the proposed Socal Creek Water District and the PV Water boundary. I don't know what, if any, complexities that may have, but something I want to bring up for the commission to consider. And then lastly, I am serving as the chair of the Santa Cruz County Water Advisory Commission this year, and the Water Advisory Commission is meeting this afternoon, and I do believe we have an item on our agenda to just receive a sort of a status update report on this LAFCO sphere and service review. So with that, I'll conclude my remarks and just extend a thanks and appreciation to all the commissioners that serve, and again to Mr. Serrano for his excellent work. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so who's next?
I was going to say, I see Mr. Sierra Ryan, so I'm going to ask her to unmute herself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
yes.
All right, good morning. Thank you, commissioners, for allowing me to speak. I just wanted to express my appreciation to Mr. Serrano for the inclusion of the small water systems in this report. That's been something that I think has been somewhat lacking in previous evaluations of water service within the county, is the recognition and understanding of the importance of these small systems and the vulnerable situation that some of them are in. So by bringing attention to them and their existence, I think it opens up more of an understanding that these are systems that exist and that there is some responsibility amongst various agencies to try to help and benefit them where possible. So I really want to appreciate not only his inclusion, but him working very closely with my staff here at the County Water Resources Program to identify the locations and then clarify some information. He worked well with through, I think we had a couple of meetings and then several follow-up emails with the our local primacy agency that oversees the small water systems in environmental health. So I just wanted to say my appreciation for that, and also to the effort that Mr. Serrano put into hearing from the different water agencies during the development of this plan. He did distribute a draft to myself as well as the executive directors and general managers of the water districts before the final was produced, which I think everybody really appreciated, and he was able to take our input at that time. I think that concludes my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. And Chair, I just see one more hand raised.
Poor Martin.
Mr. Martin Mills, you've been asked to be unmuted.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for hearing me. I am the owner of Pure Source Water. You heard me earlier with the Alba Parks and Recreation District, but that's a separate hat I'm wearing today. But yes, we own Pure Source Water, which is does have an intertie with Socal Creek Water District, as Becky mentioned. She's one of our customers. I don't see our relationship with Socal Creek at all contentious. It's just, you know, we've definitely had the intertie agreement come up for renewal every couple of years, and we've discussed their concerns as we've done that. We've always worked that out, and we've definitely appreciated the use of the intertie in emergencies. Fortunately, we've not had to use it in over 2 years, which is great. Hope to not use it in the future. As Becky mentioned, it is expensive for us to operate the intertie as opposed to producing our own water. I am curious, though, what this change in sphere boundary, how that might impact our use of that intertie, or if it would at all. I have to admit, I don't know whether our intertie was established as an emergency service agreement or not. So I'd have to look back at the history of that. It's been, you know, more than 10 years. So, but we would like to continue use of that intertie, and don't see any need to change our relationship in that regard. Or I should say, we hope to not use the intertie, but we want to have it available to us. And so if you could clarify, maybe in a private conversation or whatever, what the impact of that might be for us, that would be fine. I'd appreciate understanding that better. As far as small systems go, you know, since you mentioned it briefly, I know that's not the focus of this report, but at the time when it does become a focus, yeah, I would like to discuss that with you. Pure Source Water is a bit of a different body than a lot of the small water systems. We are privately owned utility, and we're not a mutual. So that, you know, there are numerous mutuals in the, you know, in your 132 systems, I'm sure, but you know, we may be one of only 1 or 2 in the county that is privately owned and regulated by the Public Utilities Commission. And I know that there's discussion with the Water Advisory Commission folks and the SB 552 folks about you know, things like funding reserves and you know, how these mutuals fund their systems and future expenses. And I just want everyone to be aware that because we're regulated by the Public Utilities Commission, we're under different rules, and we cannot, for example, charge fees to collect a reserve fund. We have to spend money and then recover that money later. So it's the county may not have authority to make decisions that affect the finances of PUC regulated utilities. So when that does come up, just be aware of that, and I'd be happy to discuss that more and clarify our understanding of the rules that we're subject to there. That concludes my comments.
Thank you, sir. And Chair, I will just note 2 comments for Mr. Mills, and the sphere does not affect the interties. So I just want to make that clear. It does not affect what LAFCO is trying to do with these interties or extraterritorial service agreements. Is the spheres to reflect the services being delivered or potentially delivered. So I think what LAFCO's intent is this sphere to include Pure Source, but that does not require Pure Source to be annexed into Socal Creek or vice versa. In fact, this only opens the discussions, and for any boundary change, I've told the applicants that 4 parties need to be in agreement in order for an annexation to occur or boundary change. The affected agency needs to be in support. The affected landowners need to be in support. The county needs to be in support. And finally, LAFCO. So unless those 4 parties are in agreement, there will not be an annexation. So I want to make sure that when annexation is considered, it's because everyone feels it's the best way to provide services to the residents. And if that's not the case, LAFCO is not here to force that on it. But LAFCO is encouraging the agencies to discuss potential boundary changes to improve the delivery of services. That's what's happening with Big Basin and San Lorenzo Valley Water. You know, discussions weren't happening years ago, but it's happening now because times have changed. So LAFCO wants to be that doorman that's holding the door open and just allowing the conversation to occur, whether it's now or in the near future. And I also want to note, Chair, that as part of the adopted resolution, LAFCO is requesting that the commission direct staff to send letters to the private water systems to build better working relationship with them, remind them about AB 54, and again, just have a dialogue about their current situation and see if anything comes of it. So that's part of staff's recommendation. And at that point, I'll stop and allow the commissioners to have their discussion.
Okay, so I've closed public comments and I'm going to open the floor to the commission for discussion. And I had a couple of typos. Do you want to hear them, or do you?
For any of like minor grammatical errors, if you could send me an email, and then we're just going to include them as part of the final version. Those are just administrative changes that we can do.
Okay, because Socal Creek meets on the 1st and 3rd Tuesdays of the month, and it just says 3rd. So,
so like if you can just send me that, then I'll correct.
Okay. Okay, so I believe Roger had his hand up first, but I'm not sure if it was him or Yvette.
I saw in the order of Roger, Yvette, Ryan, and then John.
Okay, so let's get moving. Roger.
Mr. Roger, you're
yourself.
muted.
Okay, is this better?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I have a few questions and comments on the report. First of all, it is very complete in terms of what you've actually accomplished here. There are a few things, however, that I think we should be aware of in the commission in terms of looking at our overall water issue. Now, the first comment I had is I think that the changes to the sphere make a lot of sense to me, but you do still have some islands involved in the spheres. And I think they should be addressed in some reason about why they're there. Maybe they're unpopulated, I don't know. But it's something which we really should be looking at is a general practice of eliminating islands whenever we can. The other thing I'd like to have some more discussion about changing the sphere for Santa Cruz. Now, we had an interesting discussion about this several years ago when we went way out into the ocean, 3 miles or something like that. And I guess my general question is there any advantage in the original sphere if we go for something like decel in the city of Santa Cruz, which I believe we still may have to do at some point? So I basically would like a little bit more explanation of that. You can perhaps give it to us now, or it can be done as part of a further process. The other thing that I would like to see is better information about the production of water and the actually planning for the future. Now, we don't have any information in the report, at least that I've noticed, about what is for example, the history of production by various districts. What is the breakdown in any sense for the largest uses within districts? One possibility, for example, is to look at Santa Cruz, where we have a number of large uses. We've got the university, we have the golf course, we have also general questions about residential, both low density, single family homes, as well as the multifamily housing that we build as well. And it's just be very useful, I think. And that's another general theme that I have, is I want this report to be as useful as possible. The as far as the planning, I know that the various districts have done a lot of this, but I'd like to have some very clear and transparent links to exactly what it is that these different service areas are actually providing. Another thing that I think might be useful is to look at the operating costs and compare them between the different districts. I noticed, for example, there's some difference in the personnel costs for the different districts. It'd be interesting to find out why that is, and whether that might be something that can be looked at in terms of cutting costs for districts in the future, either cutting or increasing them. The other thing was I wanted to know what differences really is there between the Scotts Valley treatment in this report and that we did last year. I suspect they're very similar in terms of the information, maybe updated a few dates, but I would like to see at least some recognition of what changed in this new one as well. The private production is private districts is very important. And I think from the questions we've already heard this morning, there perhaps should be better maps drawn that indicate exactly where these districts are. And I'd also like to know a little bit about how much of the water is being used by these small districts. Now, I know that with the changes in state law, we're required to do more of this, but at the same time, it'd be nice to see either links to what's going on or else some discussion within the report. So again, I think that it's an excellent job you've done, but there are some shortcomings in my opinion.
Thank you, Commissioner Roger Anderson. I'll just touch on your comments. In regards to San Lorenzo Valley Water District and Scotts Valley Water District, which we did standalone service reviews for them last year and the previous year, you're right. The majority of their information is similar. The only difference is it is up to date with the consistent analysis of the other districts. And the reason why we included San Lorenzo and Scotts Valley is because of telling the story of all the water agencies. So while we did do a service review for them, I wanted to include them in this report because it wouldn't tell the complete story without those two districts. And so those are the reasons why they're included. But the majority of information is similar, with the difference of updated information. So their financial performance or evaluation is with the latest financial audits, for example. As far as the city of Santa Cruz's sphere, and it being including 2 miles outside the Pacific Ocean, I understand the staff's intent in the past. The way your staff now views spheres is to really be an indicator. And one of those indicators is where can services be provided and by who? And so having a sphere outside, the Pacific Ocean, I don't see the city planning on doing land use designations out there or providing services out there. So that being said, that's the reason why we are amending it to really focus on where services are being provided. So that's the reason why that's being proposed for the commission today. And I think your other points about including additional analysis about cost comparisons and the production of water are valid. And there was only so much that I could cover in this report, and I wanted to make sure that this was a informative report that provides information. I didn't want to be redundant with the technical studies that the agencies had done, but I really wanted to make sure that we had certain chapters that were consistent and, more importantly, fulfilled the factors identified in LAFCO law. So that's why I didn't go into too much detail about like the production of water or the cost analysis, because I want to make sure that I, at minimum, hit the factors identified in our Cortese-Turford Act. So hopefully those answered most of your questions, but I will make sure you've seen the service reviews evolved And so I will continue evolving the reports and including more information. So I wrote down the items that you want to see, and I will make sure that I include them as we go forward with additional service reviews.
Thank you.
And Chair, I will note that Commissioner Ryan Crudy had to leave, but he did send me an email just extending his appreciation on the staff's completion of this report. And I think Vice Chair Brooks was next.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Serrano. My comments actually echo what Commissioner Anderson was alluding to. I think that this report is excellent and certainly a great tool for the different water districts, and that we, with all of your knowledge and information, that we could possibly offer some more really helpful information. And one of the things that I thought of was similar to Mr. Anderson's in terms of like, well, what kind of, with this type of growth, with this kind of expansion for certain areas, how does that really impact the consumers? And can things like the Socal Creek Water District sustain that type of growth, especially with their new water source? So I'm sure you've thought about those things already, but I just think that most certainly that could be helpful in the future for these districts to have our support and information on. The other one was what Mr. Lockwood brought up about expanding the region for the Pajaro Valley management into other counties. And I'm just not sure how that actually works with us adopting, or I know this is just a report, but what does that kind of relationship look like as we start going into other counties in terms of our LAFCO jurisdiction and what that partnership looks like? And then I'm just looking at my notes here. I think, for now, I'll stop there. And then I just have some smaller questions, Mr. Serrano, that I'll follow up with you in regards to the city of Santa Cruz and Socal Creek Water District, and more particulars on the feedback they gave to one another, especially because we know that it crosses over into Capitola's area in terms of what Santa Cruz provides. So thank you again. This was a very informative report, and I think it's a great tool for the districts here.
Thank you, Vice Chair Brooks. I will note that, yes, when it comes to multiple counties and districts located in multiple counties, the law identifies a principal LAFCO. In this case, Santa Cruz LAFCO is a principal LAFCO for Pajaro Valley Water. And so we have the authority to adopt spheres that go beyond our county. So that is within our authority to do so. And you're right about, the implications of these spheres. We're trying to reflect what's already being served, but that does not necessarily mean that if you're in the sphere, you're gonna be annexed. It's just, it's a planning tool, and it just it sets the stage for us to have those discussions, and whether or not annexation happens, that's yet to be determined. But I do want these spheres to mean something. And that's the thing that I think it's been missing these last couple of years, that these certain spheres were around for decades and it didn't mean anything. And so I want to really change that and make sure that when we have spheres, they have purpose. And that's the intent for these amendments.
If I may, Chair, as a follow-up, Mr. Serrano, in the report, I can't recall, do we talk about how often we're going to revisit these findings?
Really good question. And that's another reason why we're doing these more detailed reports, because I don't want us to have this conversation 5 years from now. These are ongoing discussions, and they'll be brought up on a regular basis to make sure of, what's the status of what's going on. And that's the intent of these types of service reviews. So yes, these will be discussed as we go forward. And that's the reason why LAFCO is asking the districts to develop annexation plans so that they look at their spheres and they provide their findings to LAFCO and see what happens with those discussions.
Okay, so we have John Hunt is up.
And Chair, if you don't mind, I do want to apologize for the commission. If I can just step out for 1 minute, I'll be right back. But I don't want to, stop the commission discussion, but I do want to step out for 1 second.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair Lather. I have a question for Executive Officer Serrano, so I can wait for a moment.
I hope it is just for 1 second. Josh, is it appropriate to take a 5-minute break and come back?
Yeah, absolutely. We could take a quick break if the commission would like, just so folks have a chance to take a break.
Yeah, let's do that.
I'm back. Sorry about that.
Oh, well, he is back now. So
Might not be a bad idea to take a break anyway, but
yeah. Yeah. Joe, we're talking about taking a 5-minute break and then coming back at 10:35.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Okay, let's do that. Do I have to get a vote?
No, Chair, that's at your prerogative. We can just
Okay.
take a short recess.
Okay, let's do that. So 5 minutes.
Hey, Joe, do we have a quorum? I have to step out at 10:45, 10:50. Will we be able to maintain a quorum at
We
that
will still
point?
have a quorum if you do have to leave. We did lose Ryan, but we'll still have a quorum.
Okay.
And I'm
great.
hoping after this item, the next items are going to go pretty quickly.
Okay.
But thanks for giving me a heads up. And for those members of the public, thank you again for joining us today. As you heard our chair, we did take a 5-minute recess. We'll be back at 10:35. I appreciate your patience. And we'll get started in a few minutes. Chair, as we're getting back, I will note that, again, Commissioner Ryan Creedy had to step away. He's not coming back. So we still have a quorum. Vice Chair Brooks did mention that she does need to leave this meeting around 10:45 or so. So we'll still have a quorum in the event that she leaves as well. I did mention to Vice Chair Brooks and the commissioners that were listening that after this item, I anticipate the next agenda items to go pretty quickly. I don't see any real lengthy discussions for the next agenda items. Just an FYI.
Mm-hmm.
And Josh, thanks for stepping in while I had to step out.
Of course.
I'm sorry I missed your email until after. My
No
system's slow.
problem.
I guess since I said 10:35, I have to wait 2 minutes.
And we got 2 minutes. So is it my understanding we'll start back with Commissioner John Hunt? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm starting to imagine the Jeopardy tune. Okay, it's 10:35. John, you're on.
Thank you, Chair Lather. I have a comment and a question for Executive Officer Serrano. The comment is, thank you very much for this report. It does a great job of identifying the issues for LAFCO, and it's also a great reference for so many things going on in the county. So thank you for a great job on this. My question relates to the map that you actually have up on your screen right now for the Socal Creek Water District. And in the southeast corner down there near where your cursor is the tan area between basically Aptos and La Selva Beach. And on the report page 223, it shows the current sphere boundary. And on page 224, it shows what's on your screen now, which is the proposed sphere boundary. And my question is whether annexing that tan area in the new sphere has any influence on the urban service line and the potential for development in that area. That's a parcel that's of great interest to the people in Seascape and La Selva Beach.
Right. So good question. And again, so if you can see my cursor, there is a lot of ESAs already established in this area here. So that's why staff is recommending that the sphere boundary include this tan area that you're mentioning, because in a lot of these little parcels here, the district's already providing services to them. So we want to reflect that in the sphere. And again, opening the doors to have discussions about annexation. Now, whether or not annexation will happen with all the areas within the sphere, that's yet to be determined. And as I mentioned, the district has to be willing and capable of providing services. The county is willing to allow the annexation to happen, and the residents want to be in support of annexation. So a lot of legal hoops need to happen in order for annexation to be even considered. But yes, that's the reason why staff is recommending a sphere amendment, because there are a number of ESAs within this tan area that the districts are providing services. But that doesn't automatically say that everything that's within the sphere is going to be annexed, because that's something that happens a lot with other districts where they have areas in their sphere that are not annexed, or they're substantially surrounded by the district and it still doesn't get annexed for various reasons.
I think your answer applies, but my question was to the area that you're pointing to right now on your screen. And yes, and we can talk more about that later. I know we're short on time here, so.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, so this area here, yes, it's not being provided by the district, but the district beforehand was in 3 pieces. And so this sphere has a way to kind of unify the district into one. But that, in order to answer your question, whether or not this area gets annexed, that's yet to be determined, because I don't know what the position is for the landowners or the district at this time.
Okay, I think that, the annexation and its effect on development is going to be important to the residents. So,
right.
Thank you.
Okay, and Roger Anderson is back.
Yeah, I've got 2 other things I forgot to say.
Sure.
The first one is that I'd like you to take a look at the population growth figures in the report. It seems like they're somewhat inconsistent, what you give as a percentage. And the percentages also, you are generally using a growth per 5 years. But I don't know what's more standard. I don't mind a 5-year growth rate in percent, but there are some inconsistencies in the way this is applied. So I'd like you to look at that. I expect you have a spreadsheet that you may want to fix up a little bit. The other thing is going back to the question of the sphere boundary for Santa Cruz. Now, my understanding is any change we make in the sphere boundary for the water district affects the sphere of the city as well, at least in some ways. So I just wanted to be sure that we're not moving the wharf, Santa Cruz Wharf, out of the sphere. And so, just a question of checking that particular map. Legal counsel may be able to chime in on this as well.
So good comments. For the population projections, what LAFCO did is for any of our service reviews, we use the AMBAG population projections for cities and the county. And what I've mentioned in the past is that typically there are no population projections for special districts unless the districts themselves do the projections. And so a way to provide additional information in these service reviews is LAFCO gives, an estimated population projection. And what we do is AMBAG has identified a slow growth for Santa Cruz County of, less than 1%. So we've taken that percentage and applied it to the specific special districts. And we gathered projections, but they're merely projections. And one of the primary reasons why LAFCO staff shares a draft copy of the report is to get the comments from the districts themselves to see whether or not it's reflective of their district. And in some cases, for example, Pajaro Valley Water Management Agency corrected LAFCO's population projections because they had more accurate data. And so we use their information. So it's not that there is a discrepancy, it's just there's different methodologies for districts based on their feedback or the formulas used by LAFCO. But what I can do is, you're right, there is a master spreadsheet that LAFCO does. And what I'll do is I'll make sure that the calculations are accurate before we finalize this report. As far as the sphere boundaries, again, this is another reason why LAFCO staff provided a draft copy, is to allow the districts and the agencies and the cities to look at the proposed sphere amendments and see if they have any issues or concerns. And I'm happy to say that the proposed sphere amendments were not opposed by any of the water agencies. So that's, again, they had an opportunity to review, they provided their comments, and I was able to get the green light from them regarding their proposed boundaries. Good comments, thank you.
So if there's no other questions, do we have a motion on staff's recommendation?
I'll move approval with staff's recommendations.
And Chair, just a clarification, that motion would include the amendments that we discussed as well as those that Mr. Serrano referenced at the beginning of the presentation?
Correct.
Thank you.
And John Hunt has his hand up. You can talk, John.
Thank you. I'd like to consider including something in the motion that the adoption of this report does not do anything to facilitate development in those parcels I was referencing. If the recommendation of the report is to extend the sphere of the Socal Creek Water District to those parcels between Aptos and La Selva Beach, I think that's going to be a serious issue with people in South County. So I'd like to see if we can address that in the motion to approve the report.
The report is not telling us to get a sphere. It's just recommending.
Chair, I would be hesitant to include language about any development or LAFCO's position on development. Because at this time, the county can develop it at any point with or without this sphere amendment. And so I would be hesitant, and I would defer to our legal counsel about including language about our position on proposed developments in a particular area. I'm not accustomed to having that language in staff's recommendation.
Josh, it's also my understanding that that would be considered at this point if there was a sphere amendment.
That's correct. So I would concur with Mr. Serrano. That'd be a little unusual and might start trending into kind of a land use regulation, which is outside of LAFCO's control. But I think, Chair, your point's well taken. This sphere influence doesn't, allow any development or annexation, and anything would require future consideration by the Land Use Authority and potentially by LAFCO.
Thank you.
Okay, so we still have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second? Roger, is your hand up again, or you just forgot?
Yeah, just a quick thing. I would like to support what John Hunt is mentioning here. I mean, it seems to me what we're doing in this process is changing the sphere. We saw earlier today that was a major reason that we approved that Blossom Hill project, was that it was already in the sphere and it could be done basically by extraterritorial. So I do think it's a really valid issue, and I think we should either take it out of this map or find some other way to deal with it. So I'd like to move that we, as a amendment, that we remove that issue from our map for that particular part of the county.
Josh, are we approving a sphere amendment? I thought this is a report on recommendations.
And Chair, I'll chime in. So yes, so as part of this countywide water report, we are proposing amendments to the spheres other than the San Lorenzo Valley Water and Scots Valley Water, where we are reaffirming their sphere. For most of the other water agencies, we are amending the sphere. In this case, for Silco Creek Water District, we are amending the sphere to include certain areas. And I think the area in question here is between the areas in blue. We have this kind of tan color that's now being proposed to be included in the district sphere. And there's questions of whether or not the sphere should exclude it as part of our motion. And that would be up to the commission. I will note that when discussing this with the general manager of Socal Creek Water and his staff, we looked at different alternatives for the sphere boundary. And one of it was just being coterminous with the jurisdictional boundaries. So this 10 area would be excluded from their sphere. And this is an alternative one, which would just include it in their sphere. Again, it does not indicate that annexation will be automatic. As the commission is aware, there's a lot of spheres, especially in this fire agencies, that areas are in their sphere for decades and they've never been annexed. So again, this area here is in between the district, so it raises the question of whether or not they be served by the district in the future. That's yet to be determined. And if the commission wants to amend this sphere to exclude this area, that's something that we can consider. And what we could do, Chair, is we could approve the report with all the amendments and bring this sphere back at a later date if that's something that the commission wants to do before we can have additional discussion.
And Chair, I would just note procedurally, we do have a motion. So the question would be whether the Commissioner Anderson would like to amend the motion to include the discussion, or if there's a second on it. If the motion fails for lack of a second, then we can consider an alternative motion.
Okay. So Commissioner Anderson, Jim.
I'll withdraw my recommendation.
Madam Chair, maybe this would be the best way to do it. This is Zach. I would move the recommended actions with the exclusion of the Socal Creek water section and to have that come back for additional discussion at a future meeting.
Do we have a second?
Second that motion.
Thank you, Jim Anderson. So can we have a roll call? Mr. Serrano.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Jim Anderson.
Aye.
Commissioner Roger Anderson.
Aye.
Vice Chair Yvette Brooks. And Vice Chair Yvette Brooks, I see you're still here.
She may have left her computer on.
Okay. Commissioner Ryan Cruz is not here. Commissioner Francisco Estrada.
Aye.
Commissioner Zach Friend.
Aye.
And Chair Rochelle Lather.
Aye.
So this motion passes 5-0.
Okay. Now we can go to other business. Continuation of remote meetings.
Thank you, Madam Chair. LAFCO continues to utilize AB 361, which allows public agencies to conduct virtual meetings if they choose to. As the commission recalls, staff was able to determine that a hybrid model may be implemented in the near future. However, due to the COVID cases still being prevalent and the majority of commissioners' preference in attending virtually, it is unknown exactly when the hybrid model will be implemented. Therefore, staff is recommending that the commission ratify the attached resolution to continue virtual meetings and allow staff to determine whether the next LAFCO meeting will be 100% virtual or a hybrid approach. Chair, that concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions once you open and close public comments.
Okay, so I'm opening public comments. Are there any? Sorry, I don't see any hands up for attendees. So I will close public comment and move to the board and see if there's any comments. Okay, so do we have a motion?
I'll move the recommended actions.
Thank you.
That
I think Jim Anderson seconded it.
I did.
Okay, so can you please take roll call?
Okay. Jim Anderson,
Aye.
Roger Anderson,
Aye.
Vice Chair Yvette Brooks, not here. Commissioner Ryan Crunity, not here. Commissioner Francisco Estrada,
Aye.
Commissioner Zach Friend,
Aye.
and Chair Rochelle Laley.
Aye.
This motion passes with a 5-0 vote.
Okay, so the next item is the grand jury report.
We have the consulting firm.
Oh, did I miss that? Sorry, I rolled down the consulting firm selection.
Thank you. I'll try to keep this brief. Thanks again, Madam Chair. As the Commission's Countywide Fire Protection Service and Sphere review indicated, fire agencies were asked to review their spheres and develop annexation plans. During this time, many agencies expressed interest in annexing, but indicated that there was no value to or no revenue to offset costs to deliver services in those sphere areas. But on the flip side, the county expressed concerns about the loss of revenue if those areas were annexed into the fire agencies. That is why LAFCO sent out an RFP in March to hire a consulting firm to determine the financial impacts of the fire agencies and the county, specifically CSA 48. At the end of the deadline, staff received bids from 3 interested firms, as shown on the table on your screen. Based on the criteria outlined in the RFP, staff is recommending that the commission hire AP Triton. I do want to thank all 3 firms for expressing interest in working with LAFCO on this important study. I also want to thank county staff members, Alyssa Benson, Michael Beaton, and Alana Martinez Davis for helping LAFCO craft the scope of work, which is included in the draft's contract for consideration. And this is something that Mr. Michael Beaton mentioned earlier in the meeting. Chair, that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions once you open and close public comments.
Okay, so I will open public comments. Oh, I do see a hand up.
Ms. Becky, you've been asked to be unmuted.
Hello, this is Becky Steinbruner. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I appreciate this work, and I think it's important to have this independent financial information. I wonder, I see reference to CSA 48 in the proposal, but not CSA 4. And as I remember the LAFCO recommendations to essentially dissolve CSA 4, I'm wondering why this work, and maybe I'm just not reading it properly, would not involve CSA 4. I have seen that there is resistance from the stakeholders within CSA 4 to being dissolved. So I'm just curious about that. And I will be interested in seeing the results of this report, living in CSA 48, but served primarily by Central Fire Protection District with an MOU between the 2 agencies. So I will be very interested in seeing the feasibility and financial impact of the proposed annexations. But I would like clarification about the CSA 4 issue, Pajaro Dunes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And just for clarification, Chair, yes, so CSA 4 will be analyzed as part of the study. It's actually an important piece of this study because as the Commission is aware, Pajaro Valley Fire did submit an application to annex territories within their sphere. CSA 4 is within the sphere boundary of Pajaro Valley Fire. So one of the concerns that the Pajaro Dunes residents have expressed are valid, and they need to have that information. And that's the reason why we're doing this study. We want to make sure that if there's a financial impact, what the financial impact is to the county, to the fire agencies. That way we have data to work on determining what's the best way to provide services. And is Pajaro Valley Fire the best method to provide services to that community? So yes, CSA 4 is going to be analyzed as part of this study, as well as all the other fire agencies and CSA 48. We need to have a clear picture on the financial impact from both sides. And that's the intent of this study.
Okay, so there's no other attendees with their hands up. So I will close the public part of this and move on to commissioners. I see Director Roger Anderson has his hand up. Commissioner, excuse me.
Okay, I support this motion. The only comment that I have is exactly who's going to be doing the work on this particular project. There's a very large group of people mentioned on the staff of Triton, but I would like to know, just for your own peace of mind, Mr. Serrano, who is it that you're going to really be talking to, and who's going to be assembling this document and report?
So great question. So we actually, prior to this meeting, and before we finalize the draft contract that's attached to your agenda packet, we met with the team to go over the scope of work. And we know that there's the three primary players that are going to be our go-to person, and they designated their point person. So we met with that point person. We know who that is, and that's going to be the person that we will be working with closely if the commission approves this contract with AP Triton. So yes, that was staff's concern as well, is who are we actually going to be working with, is who's going to be doing the work. And that's where we felt really comfortable. And when I say we, our fire consultant, Don Jarvis, and I felt really comfortable with the team that AP Triton has identified, their point person, their experience, and what they can bring to the table in creating a informative study. So yes, we have identified that, and actually that person's name and information is identified in the draft contract as well.
Okay. I'll move approval of the draft contract.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Please do the vote count, roll count.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Jim Anderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Roger Anderson?
Aye.
Vice Chair Brooks is absent. Commissioner Ryan Coonerty is absent. Commissioner Francisco Estrada?
Aye.
Commissioner Zach Friend?
Aye.
And Chair Rochelle Lader.
Aye.
This motion passes 5-0.
So now I can move on to the grand jury report.
Yes, ma'am. All righty. So each year, the grand jury publishes reports that cover various topics and issues. This year, the grand jury published a report about the water supply and long-term planning of the water agencies as we continue to deal with dry seasons. The grand jury asked LAFCO to comment on 3 findings and 1 recommendation found in the report. Attached to your packet is a draft letter addressing those requested areas. And staff really focused on the information that we found from our countywide water report that was just approved by the commission earlier as our resource on answering these 3 findings and recommendations. So staff is recommending that the commission approve the letter, excuse me, and direct staff to submit the final version to the grand jury before their August 22nd deadline. And Chair, that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions once you open and close public comments. Sorry.
I keep muting myself. Okay, so I will open public comments. Are there Okay, I just saw a hand go up, so we
Miss
have one
Becky,
comment.
Miss Becky, you've been asked to be unmuted.
Thank you. This is Becky Steinbruner. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I just want to again bring to your commission's attention that under Senate Bill 552, the county, all counties of California have to present an ongoing plan and its implementation regarding drought response and resiliency. And I think that the working group will be, the final working group will be meeting this month. I think it's the 16th of July. That's chaired by Ms. Sierra Ryan. And that group will be presenting information to county's Water Advisory Commission, which again is meeting this afternoon at 4 p.m. So I think these things are very related, and I appreciate the very thoughtful and thorough responses, Dr. Serrano, to the grand jury's report. I think there's some very good reports coming out of the grand jury these days, and I'm pleased to see that this is one of them.
Thank you, Miss Becky.
It looks like there are no other public comments, so I'll move it to the board, to the commission. Any commissioners? No. Okay, so do we have a motion?
I'll move approval of the staff recommendation.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Jim. Joe, can you please do the roll call?
All right. Commissioner Jim Anderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Roger Anderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Woods is absent, Commissioner Ryan Cruz is absent, Commissioner Francisco Estrada,
Aye.
Commissioner Zach Friend,
Aye.
and Chair Rochelle Lather.
Aye.
This motion passes 5-0. We're almost done. We're almost done.
Okay, so now we're at the LAFCO update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The wait is over. LAFCO will be conducting its first annual conference after a 2-year hiatus. The conference will be held in Newport Beach during October 19th to the 21st. At this time, your chair and staff are registered for the conference. We do have enough in the budget for one more commissioner if anyone is interested. But prior to the conference, the commission should designate a commissioner who is attending to be a voting delegate during this year's regional elections. We have 2 coastal region seats open this year, a county and a district seat. If any commissioner is interested in running for either seat, the deadline to submit nomination forms is September 19th. Since at this time, the chair and the executive officer are attending this conference, staff's recommendation is that the commission designate Chair Rochelle Lather as the voting delegate and the executive officer as an alternate, just in case Ms. Rochelle can't do it. But that is staff's recommendation. Chair, that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions once you open and close public comments.
I don't see any public comments, so I will open and close public comments and then move to the commission. Are there any comments by the commissioners?
I'll move the recommended actions.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, so Mr. Serrano, can you please do the roll call?
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Jim Anderson.
Aye.
Commissioner Roger Anderson.
Aye.
Commissioner Brooks is absent. Commissioner Cooney is absent. Commissioner Francisco Estrada.
Aye.
Commissioner Zach Friend.
Aye.
And Chair Rochelle Lather.
Aye.
This motion passes 5-0.
Okay, so the next item is the comprehensive quarterly report for the fourth quarter of fiscal year 2021-22.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Another fiscal year is in the books. A complete overview of fiscal year 21-22 is included in your packet. I will note that we ended the fiscal year with a surplus as shown on your screen. This surplus was used to balance our budget for our new fiscal year 22-23. And Chair, that concludes my presentation. I know we've had a long meeting, but overall, we ended the fiscal year on a high note when it comes to our financial performance and our projects. And so I just want to open this up for discussion, and this is an informational item, so no commission action is required at this time.
Are there any public comments?
I do see a hand raised.
Okay.
So Ms. Becky, you've been asked to be unmuted.
Thank you. This is Becky Steinbrunner. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Again, Director Serrano, thank you for your excellent work. I don't know how you do all that you do as a one-man show there, and it's always such excellent.
I don't know either, Ms. Becky.
Well, I want to let you know I really appreciate you and your good work. I have one quick question because I am in County Service Area 33. That is a road-related CSA. And I see on page 2 of your report that there may be a report coming to the Commission on October 5th regarding evaluation of the road-related CSAs. How are you gathering that information? Are you making any contact with the actual liaison officers for these road-related CSAs? It's been a challenge for these road-related CSAs because of changing staff at the Department of Public Works and very high percentages of money that the county does require for managing and inspections, and an increasing amount of engineering, professional engineering for simple side-to-side overlay. So I'd like to know that, I would like to request actually that you do make contact the best of your ability with the liaison officers for these road-related CSA. Thank you very much. And again, thank you for your good work.
Thank you, Ms. Becky. And Chair, just for clarification, Ms. Becky is correct. The third service review of this year will focus on the 50 or 34 road-related CSAs in Santa Cruz County. So it's going to be a countywide report. That's an ongoing theme that staff has been doing, is just telling the full story. And yes, so LAFCO is coordinating with County Public Works to get the information necessary to conduct our analysis. And she raised a good point about reaching out to the existing liaisons to kind of get a better feel of what the issues are coming from the residents themselves. So that's something that's on my to-do list, to coordinate with those liaisons and see who I can get a hold of and have discussions with, and have another informative report to present to the Commission in October.
Okay, well, I'm going to close the public comments and open the floor for the Commission to discuss. Are there any commissioners that are dying to talk about this fourth quarter?
It's an informational item, so no Commission action is required.
Okay, so let's move on to written correspondence.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Staff received a letter from the San Lorenzo Valley Water District after the agenda packet was distributed. The letter was shared with the Commission and posted on our website for public access. In summary, the letter is requesting that the Commission support the district's quest to transfer over sewer responsibilities to the county. As you may recall, the Commission's 2019 Countywide Wastewater Services Sphere Review adopted a zero sphere for the district's Bear Creek Estates wastewater system. A zero sphere indicates that the services should be transferred over to another local agency, such as, excuse me, such as the county. No action is required by the commission at this time, but staff does plan on providing any assistance on the discussions between the county and the district if invited. Staff assistance would be consistent with the findings and recommendations identified in our 2019 sewer report. And Chair, that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions once you close public comments.
Is there a public comment for this?
There's public comments for any agenda item.
Okay. Okay, and are there public comments? Let me see.
I don't see any hand raised.
Okay. Okay, so let's, is there any comment from the commission? This is just informational.
Just informational, so we can move forward if you'd like.
Okay, let's move forward. Are there any press articles?
This is just a routine staff report identifying articles that may be relevant to the commission, but there's no action for this item. This is informational as well. Unless any questions, we can move forward.
Okay, so let's move forward to commissioners' business. Are there any commissioners that have anything they'd like to share or discuss? It looks like Francisco does.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to really take a moment to express my appreciation and thank Joe for his efforts these last couple of weeks to bring stakeholders together in South County to talk about Measure U and its importance and its impact to our community. And I think Joe and LAFCO can have been and can play an important role in finding common ground and in really having these important talks between all stakeholders in the community. And in everything that we've worked on together, Joe, I've always appreciated just your commitment to transparency, to thoroughness, and to collaboration. So, you know, just a big thank you. And to say that I really enjoyed serving on LAFCO these past 4 years. And, you know, regardless of what the history has been between our two entities, LAFCO and the city of Watsonville, I hope that in our time together, Joe, that, you know, we've hopefully turned a corner and made some strides in our working relationship. And again, just to say thank you for all your efforts and to thank the committee who worked to bring you to Santa Cruz County. I think that was a very wise decision. And so thank you for all the work that you do. And thank you to all my LAFCO colleagues for all the work that they do on this important body of public body.
Thank you, Commissioner. And yes, that's LAFCO's staff's goal, is just to provide assistance. So if for example, the city of Watsonville would, you know, ask for assistance from LAFCO, I'm more than happy to. Whenever I'm invited, I always go to the party, whatever the party is. I always like to be involved when I can provide assistance. So I'll continue to do that for any city, any agency, any resident. So I appreciate the comments.
That's very nice. Are there any other comments? Anyone from the public want to comment on a comment? Okay, so I think we can move on to adjournment. And the next meeting is scheduled for September 7th at 9 a.m.
And I promise the agenda will be lighter in September.
Thank you.
This was a very long one.
All righty. Well, I appreciate the commissioners. And yes, September will be late.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Take care, everyone. Thanks, Mr. Josh. Mr. Roger, great comments. And maybe we can regroup and make sure that as we move forward, for example, the Socal Creek Water Sphere and just our water report in general covers everything that you're looking for.
Thank you. I mean, it's a really important issue, as you know, and you provided a lot of useful data here. And let's talk a little bit about just sort of tying together some of the information that you have.
Absolutely.
I will send you both an email with whatever particulars I can come up with in the next few days.
Perfect.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. All right, gentlemen, take care.
Okay.
Bye, Donna.
Bye, Miss Donna.
Adios.
All righty, I'm going to close this meeting.